Nalini, we see Arvind Kejriwal, even before the High Court's verdict, had approached the Supreme Court on the matter. Supreme Court asked him to hold on until the Delhi High Court's verdict comes out. And Delhi High Court hasn't given him any relief. Would you be able to take us through what happened in court today?
Well, Nabila, one way or the other, the matter was eventually going to reach the Supreme Court because even if Arvind Kejriwal was granted bail by the High Court today, then the ED would have knocked on the doors of the Supreme Court. Tomorrow is when the hearing before the Supreme Court is scheduled. So, like you correctly pointed out, it is going to be up to the Supreme Court to decide whether or not it will be the trial court order that is going to be put into effect or now the High Court order that has stayed the trial court order, saying that the ED did not get a fair hearing before the trial court. Now, essentially, what the single judge bench of Justice Sudhir Kumar Jain of the Delhi High Court, who was hearing this matter, has said is that while the issue is limited to stay, whether or not there should be a stay on the trial court order. Second thing that they've said is that the vacation judge in the trial court, Judge Nyaya Bindu, who had passed the order granting him bail, did not fully appreciate all the documents and the arguments that were put forth by the Enforcement Directorate during the hearing and the arguments that were going on bail. So keeping that in mind, there is a prerequisite under Section 45 of the PMLA that the prosecution needs to be given a fair opportunity to oppose any bail under the PMLA. And since that fair opportunity was not granted to the Enforcement Directorate, is essentially why the Delhi High Court has today stayed the order. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not the Supreme Court will agree with the Delhi High Court on whether or not a fair opportunity was granted to the Enforcement Directorate.
Cut across
but the High Court Judge Justice
the lawyers speaking right to the media. Listen in.
Of the vacation judge of the trial court pointed out was fallacious and incorrect and contrary to the several judges of the Supreme Court. It seems to have been appreciated that you have to comment only on this.
Thank you. Put the stay on the trial court order. What do you want to say, sir, on this?
It's a well-considered judgment, and the effects or the part of the judgment of the vacation judge of the trial court pointed out was fallacious and incorrect and contrary to in favor of the Kejriwal. There are several observations made, one regarding Section 45 having not been considered properly, and other is that the papers which are submitted have not been perused by the court. That's it, please. क्या कर रहे हो आप? Okay, हो गया, हटो.
Still there. Welcoming the judgment, we hear him speak. He says clearly that this is a well-thought-out judgment. They welcome it. Of course, Arvind Kejriwal, for him, it's a big setback. He remains in Tihar jail until the Supreme Court takes up the matter tomorrow and gives out a verdict. Now, what's that going to be? We can only speculate. We've got to wait for what the final verdict would be. We also have Nalini with us. Nalini, over to you. As we see here, Arvind Kejriwal was granted bail by the lower court, saying that there wasn't proper proof to link him with the proceeds of the crime. That's what the lower court said, to which the ED said there are several, there's adequate proof and that they've already argued on the matter and it's unfair for the lower court not to look at those arguments. So do you believe at this point the lower court granting bail to Arvind Kejriwal without hearing the ED side may have been premature?
Well, Nabila, as far as the Delhi High Court goes, the Delhi High Court has accepted ED's contentions that a fair hearing was not granted to them before the trial court vacation judge and that they were not given an opportunity to produce all of the evidence and all of the documents that they have against the Delhi Chief Minister. But at the same time, there were some very strong observations or arguments rather that have also been made by Arvind Kejriwal's team that have also been made part of the record during the pronouncement of the order today. Now, it remains to be seen what happens in the Supreme Court because even before the Delhi High Court order was pronounced, we'd seen Kejriwal's team had moved the Supreme Court, even challenging the interim stay, the temporary stay that was ordered by the Delhi High Court during the time that they were considering their case. Now, something very interesting had happened before the Supreme Court yesterday. Nabila, during the course of the hearing, the Supreme Court had commented that the manner in which the High Court had acted was a little unusual. The fact that when it's a matter of personal liberty, the order was not pronounced on the same day, rather it was reserved for 2-3 days later is slightly unusual. So as to whether or not Supreme Court will rule in the favor of liberty of the Delhi Chief Minister, something that we have to wait and watch out for. His team had rushed the Supreme Court in a similar manner, like the ED had rushed the High Court when bail was granted to him in the trial court. But for now, because the High Court order, being the higher court, is applicable currently, so the stay has been ordered, which means that Arvind Kejriwal cannot expect to get out of jail. But considering that the matter is already pending in the Supreme Court and the hearing is scheduled for tomorrow, his team will now be expecting for some relief from the highest court of the country. And like we've been telling our viewers several times earlier, that every single aspect of the Delhi excise policy case is eventually going to reach the Supreme Court. And this, considering that it's a bail of the Delhi Chief Minister, the sitting Chief Minister of Delhi, the Supreme Court will have to give a stamp of approval on what the final decision will be.